The Belgian Malinois lunged at the kennel door with such force that Jake Morrison felt it in his chest. Not the impact, the recognition. Something about the way the dog moved. The specific angle of his attack. Left side favoring right. Calculated. Trained. Jake's hand froze on his clipboard. 3 parallel scars cut across the dog's muzzle, disappearing into fur that had once been the color of desert sand but now looked dulled by concrete and fluorescent lights. The dog's eyes, one brown, one partially clouded, locked onto his with an intensity that made Jake's breath catch. "Don't waste your time with that one." Shelter Director Carol Chun appeared beside him, arms crossed. "Been here 6 weeks. 3 failed adoptions, 2 bites, 1 lawsuit pending. We're putting him down Friday." Friday. 3 days. The dog's scarred ear twitched. A small movement barely perceptible, but Jake saw it. He'd seen that exact twitch before, in another life, in another country, when incoming mortar would whistle overhead and no. Jake shook his head, forcing the memory down where it belonged. This wasn't him. This was just another damaged dog in a system full of them. He'd learned 3 years ago that you can't save everyone. But as he turned to walk away, the Malinois made a sound. Not a growl, not a whine. A sound Jake hadn't heard in 3 years. A sound he'd heard every morning at 050 hours when, "Stop. He's dead. Rex is dead. What's his name?" Jake heard himself ask. Carol sighed. Shelter calls him Inmate 477. Previous owner called him Phantom before they surrendered him. Said he was broken beyond repair. Jake's jaw tightened. He'd heard those exact words before. A therapist had said them about him, right before he'd quit the force. "I'll take him." Carol's head snapped toward him. "Jake, did you hear what I heard you? I'll take him tonight, but I'm getting ahead of myself." This story begins 3 weeks earlier, with a phone call Jake had been avoiding for 6 months. Chapter 1. The Coward's New Life, 1:30 to 5 o'clock. Jake Morrison's phone vibrated for the 4th time that morning. Same number. Same name flashing on the screen. Captain Rodriguez, SF, PDK 9 Unit. He declined it again. The morning sun cut through the windshield of his animal control truck, parked outside Betty S. Diner, where he took his coffee the same way he took everything else these days alone, bitter and trying not to think too much. "You're running away, Morrison," Rodriguez had said during their last conversation. "That's not the Jake I trained." "Yeah, well, that Jake died in a warehouse in Oakland 3 years ago. This Jake picked up stray cats and handed out citations for loose chickens. This Jake lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Millbrook, population 4,000, where nobody knew his name and nobody asked questions." His radio crackled. "Jake, you copy?" He picked up. "Yeah. Diane, what's up?" "Got a call from the highway patrol. Semi-truck accident on Route 9. Cargo spilled. They're saying, exotic animals?" Jake sat up straighter. "What kind of exotic animals?" Caller said snakes. "Lots of snakes. Of course it's snakes." 20 minutes later, Jake stood on the shoulder of Route 9, watching highway patrol officers try to corral what appeared to be a dozen ball pythons slithering across hot asphalt. A middle-aged trucker sat on the guardrail, head in his hands, muttering about permits and bankruptcy. "They're non-venomous," Jake told the nearest officer, a rookie whose name tag read Stevens. The kid looked relieved. "But you still don't want to grab them barehanded. You got welding gloves in your trunk?" Stevens nodded and jogged back to his cruiser. Jake had learned snake handling during his time with canine drug busts, sometimes meant encountering exotic pets in trap houses. Rex had always stayed back during those calls, patient, watching, waiting for Jake's signal that it was safe. Rex. The name hit him like it always did. Sudden. Sharp. He pushed it away and focused on the snakes. An hour later, with all the pythons secured in pillowcases and loaded into his truck, Jake's phone buzzed again. Not Rodriguez this time. A local number. Morrison. Jake, it's Carol from the county shelter. She sounded tired. She always sounded tired. Listen, we got a situation. Highway Patrol brought in a dog from that accident scene. Big Malinois, older, pretty beat up. Owner's claiming he's vicious, wants him surrendered immediately. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. Surrendered, or he's pushing for immediate euthanasia. Says the dog attacked his co-driver 3 months ago. But Jake, Carol paused. I've been doing this 20 years. This dog isn't vicious. He's terrified. What do you need from me? Can you come do a behavioral assessment? If you sign off that he's dangerous, the county will back the owner. But if you say there's rehabilitation potential, I'll be there in 30. Jake hung up and stared at the phone in his hand. He hadn't done a working dog assessment since Rex. Hadn't trusted himself with that kind of evaluation. What if he missed something? What if he cleared a dog that went on to hurt someone? What if you missed a dog that could be saved? He started the engine. The shelter sat on the outskirts of Millbrook, a converted warehouse that smelled like industrial cleaner and sadness. Jake had been here dozens of times for routine transfers, but he always avoided the back kennels where they kept the hard cases. Carol met him at the door, a stack of paperwork in her hands. He's in isolation. Kennel 12. What's his history? Owner bought him 2 years ago from some sketchy online ad. Claimed he was a trained protection dog. Used him to guard the truck during long hauls. Said the dog was fine until about 4 months ago, then started getting aggressive. Bit the co-driver on the arm. Drew blood. Owner's been keeping him crated 23 hours a day since then. Jake's jaw clenched. And now he's done with him. Now he's done with him, Carol confirmed. Jake, if you say this dog's too dangerous, I'll support that call. But look at him first. Really look. They walked through the main kennel area where a chorus of barking erupted. Jake kept his eyes forward, not looking into the runs where dozens of hopeful faces pressed against chain link. Isolation was quieter, darker. The dogs back here had issues medical, behavioral, legal. The ones the system had already given up on. Kennel 12 sat at the end of the row. Gee. The Belgian Malinois was pressed into the back corner, body low, head down. But his eyes, those eyes tracked their every movement with the hyper-awareness of a dog who'd been hurt and learned to see it coming. 3 parallel scars across his muzzle. Left ear partially torn. Ribs visible beneath a dull tan coat. And something else. Something in the way he held himself. Military posture, Jake thought. Even traumatized, he's maintaining position. Hey, buddy, Jake said quietly, crouching 3 feet from the kennel. Not too close. Never too close with the scared ones. Rough day, huh? The dog's scarred ear twitched. Jake's heart stopped. No. Coincidence. Lots of dogs twitch their ears. I'm gonna come in there, Jake continued, keeping his voice low and even. Not gonna touch you. Just need to see how you move, how you react. That okay? Carol handed him a slip lead and stepped back. Be careful. He lunged at me this morning when I tried to feed him. Jake nodded, but his hands were steady as he slowly opened the kennel door. Years of training kicked in automatically, body angled sideways, eyes soft, breathing controlled. The Malinois didn't lunge, didn't growl. He just watched. Jake sat down on the concrete floor inside the kennel, making himself small and non-threatening. I know someone hurt you. I get it. People let me down, too. The dog's eyes flickered. Just for a second, something shifted behind that clouded gaze. I used to work with a dog like you, Jake found himself saying. Words he hadn't spoken in 3 years. Belgian Malinois. Best partner I ever had. Saved my life more times than I deserved. The dog's good ear swiveled toward him. He died because I made a bad call. Because I froze when I should have moved, Jake's voice cracked. So yeah, I understand broken. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the Malinois shifted. Not toward Jake, not away. Just settled. Like maybe, possibly, the person sitting across from him wasn't a threat. What do you think? Carol whispered from outside the kennel. Jake studied the dog carefully. The way he positioned his body protecting his left side. The way his eyes tracked movement corners first, then center. The way he held his weight ready to spring but controlled. This isn't an aggressive dog, Jake said finally. This is a working dog with severe PTSD. Can you work with him? That was the question, wasn't it? Could Jake Morrison, certified coward, save a dog when he couldn't even save himself? His phone buzzed in his pocket. Rodriguez again. Jake declined the call and looked at the Malinois. Yeah, he said. I can work with him. What he didn't know yet was that he wasn't saving a dog. He was meeting a ghost. Chapter 2. The Ghost in Kennel 12. 5 o'clock to 8:30. The paperwork took 2 hours. Liability waivers, behavioral contracts, emergency vet authorization. Carol made him sign his name so many times his hand cramped. You sure about this? She asked, sliding the final form across her desk. This dog could end your career if something goes wrong. What career? Jake muttered, but he signed anyway. At 6 p.m., he loaded the Malinois into the specialized crate in his truck. The dog didn't fight, didn't resist. Just walked into the crate with the mechanical compliance of someone who'd given up expecting anything better. The drive to Jake's apartment took 15 minutes. Long enough for doubt to creep in. Long enough to question every decision that had led him here. What are you doing? You can't save every dog in the city, but he wasn't trying to save every dog. Just this one. Jake's apartment sat above a hardware store on Main Street. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in. He'd chosen it specifically because the back entrance had stairs good exercise for a dog, if he ever got another one, which he hadn't planned on doing. The Malinois balked at the bottom of the stairs, eyes locked on the dark stairwell. Elevators are scary too, Jake asked quietly. Yeah, I get that. He sat on the bottom step and waited. No pressure. No forcing. Just patience. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Finally, the dog put 1 paw on the bottom step. Then another. By the time they reached the top, Jake's shirt was soaked with sweat, and his heart was racing like he'd run a marathon. Inside the apartment, Jake had already set up a space, a dog bed in the corner, water bowl, some food. He removed the leash and stepped back. The Malinois immediately moved to the corner farthest from the door and lay down, eyes tracking Jake's every movement. Okay, Jake said. House rules. You don't bite me. I don't push you. You need space. You got space. Food's here, water's here. I'll be sleeping in the bedroom with the door open. You need me. You know where I am. The dog stared at him. Jake grabbed a beer from the fridge and collapsed onto his couch. His phone showed 6 missed calls from Rodriguez and 3 text messages. Rodriguez. Jake, we need to talk. Rodriguez. It's about the case. New evidence. Rodriguez. Call me. It's important. Jake deleted them all. The case. The mission. The warehouse. He didn't need new evidence. He knew what happened. He'd been there. He'd frozen. Rex had died. End of story. He glanced at the Malinois, still pressed against the wall like he was trying to disappear into it. You got a name? Jake asked. I mean, besides Inmate 477 and Phantom. Both of those are pretty depressing. The dog's ear twitched. There it was again, that specific movement. Jake stood up, walked to his bedroom, and opened the closet. In the back, buried under winter coats and old uniforms, was a box he hadn't opened in 3 years. His hand shook as he lifted the lid. Rex's collar. His badges. His canine unit photo, Jake in full tactical gear, Rex sitting at attention beside him, both of them looking at the camera with the confidence of warriors who didn't know yet that war leaves scars you can't see. And there, the list of Rex's commands. Jake had kept it for some reason he couldn't explain. Maybe because throwing it away felt like erasing Rex completely. He stared at the list. German commands, not English. Standard for Police K9 South. They trained Rex to respond only to German to prevent suspects from giving him counter-commands. Don't be stupid, Jake thought. This isn't Rex. Rex is dead. But his feet carried him back to the living room anyway. The Malinois was still in his corner, but his eyes tracked Jake with that familiar intensity. Jake's mouth went dry. He shouldn't do this. It was insane. This dog probably didn't even know German. Platz, he said softly. Down. Nothing. See? Jake muttered. Different dog. Stop being. The Malin was shifted. Not dramatically. But his body lowered slightly, just an inch closer to the ground. Jake's heart hammered. Sits. Sit. The dog's haunches tensed. Not a bang, exactly. But considering it. Like a word from a language he'd once known but had forgotten. This is crazy. You're seeing things that aren't there because you can't let go. Jake set the list down and walked away. He needed sleep. He needed to stop projecting his dead partner onto every damaged Malinois he encountered. But that night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong with the story he'd been telling himself for 3 years. At 2 a.m., he got up to use the bathroom. The Malinois in the same corner, awake, watching. Can't sleep either? Jake asked. The dog's good ears swiveled toward him. Jake sat on the floor in the hallway, keeping distance between them. I have nightmares too, about the warehouse, about the mission that went wrong. He didn't know why he was talking. Maybe because 2 a.m. made everyone honest. Maybe because talking to a dog was easier than talking to the therapist Rodriguez kept pushing him toward. We were tracking a drug shipment. Huge operation, months of work. Intel said the warehouse would be empty except for 2 guards. Easy in, easy out. Jake's voice dropped. Intel was wrong. The Malinois shifted slightly, his clouded eye catching the light from the hallway. There were 8 guys, armed. Rex and I were first through the door. Jake closed his eyes. I heard the shot, saw Rex go down, and I froze. My human partner, he pulled me out. They told me later that Rex died in that warehouse, that they recovered his body 3 days later when the scene was cleared, but they'd never let Jake see the body. Too traumatic, they'd said. Remember him how he was. I became the guy who got his dog killed, Jake whispered. The coward who froze. So I quit, moved here, started over. The Malinois small sound. Not quite a whine, but in the darkness of his room, Jake couldn't stop thinking about that ear twitch. About the way the dog had responded almost to German commands he shouldn't know. About the 3 scars across his muzzle and the clouded left eye. About the way the dog moved, favoring his right side over his left. Rex had been shot on his left side. Stop, Jake said out loud to his empty room. Just stop. But his mind wouldn't stop. Because there was one more thing bothering him. Something he'd noticed at the shelter, but hadn't fully processed. The dog's collar. Heavy duty. Dark nylon, military grade. And tucked under the layers of grime and wear, barely visible in the dim shelter light, Jake had seen something. A faded number, stenciled in white. K. 94773. Police K9 unit numbers were 5 digits. Always. But Special Operations K9 units, the ones that worked undercover, the ones whose dogs couldn't be traced back to department records. Those numbers were 4 digits. Jake sat up in bed, heart pounding. No, it's impossible. Rex died. They told you he died. But no one had ever let him see the body. And no one had ever explained how a police canine had been recovered from a crime scene 3 days after the fact when the protocol was immediate recovery. Jake grabbed his phone, opened his contacts, and stared at Rodriguez's number. His thumb hovered over the call button. New evidence. Rodriguez had texted. "It's important." Jake's hand shook. In the living room, the Malinois made another sound. Softer this time. Like he was trying to communicate something he didn't have words for. Jake put the phone down. Tomorrow. He'd call tomorrow. Tonight, he just needed to breathe. But as he finally drifted towards sleep, one thought kept circling through his mind like a prayer and a curse. What if Rex didn't die in that warehouse? What if he was just lost? Chapter 3. Ghosts Don't Speak German, 8:30 to 15 o'clock. Morning came with weak sunlight and the smell of coffee Jake had forgotten to turn off the night before. He shuffled into the living room, half asleep, and nearly tripped over the water bowl. The Malin was exactly where Jake had left him. Same corner. Same position. Like he'd been frozen in time. "You didn't sleep either?" Jake asked. No response. But the dog's eyes tracked him as he moved to the kitchen. Jake's phone showed 2 new messages from Rodriguez and one from Carol checking in. He ignored them both and focused on the immediate problem. How do you rehabilitate a dog who stopped believing in people? The same way you rehabilitate a man who stopped believing in himself, probably. One day at a time. He prepared a bowl of high-quality kibble mixed with wet food something Carol had recommended for underweight dogs and set it on the floor, then retreated to the couch. The Malinois didn't move. Not hungry or not trusting. Jake picked up his laptop and started researching. 3 hours disappeared into articles about canine PTSD, behavioral rehabilitation protocols, trust-building exercises. Most of it he already knew from his canine training, but reading it again helped quiet the noise in his head. One article mentioned that traumatized working dogs often responded better to their original training commands than to new ones. The familiar became a bridge back to who they used to be. Jake glanced at the list of German commands still sitting on his coffee table. "Don't. You're setting yourself up for heartbreak. But what if he wasn't?" "Okay, listen," Jake said to the dog. "I'm gonna try something. If you don't respond, that's fine. But I need to know. I need to rule it out. Understand?" The Malinois just stared. Jake stood, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. "Higher. Here. Nothing. Fuss. Heel." The dog's good ears swiveled slightly. Jake's breath caught. "My fuss." Formal heel. The Malinois shifted his weight. Not standing. Not moving toward Jake, but his body language changed. Tension rippling through shoulders that had been slack moments before. "Holy," Jake whispered. He grabbed his phone and pulled up a photo he'd saved 3 years ago. Rex's official canine unit portrait. He zoomed in on Rex's face. 3 scars. Parallel. Across the muzzle. Jake looked at the dog in his living room. 3 scars. Parallel. Across the muzzle. But Rex's eye had been normal. Brown. Clear. This dog's left eye was clouded. Damaged. Bullet wounds can cause permanent damage. A voice in his head supplied. Especially if they graze the skull. "No," Jake said out loud. "No, this is insane. I'm seeing patterns that aren't there because I want." His phone rang. Rodriguez. This time, Jake answered. "Captain." Finally. Rodriguez sounded exhausted. "Jake, where the hell have you been? I've been trying to reach you for. What's the new evidence?" Jake interrupted. Silence. Then, "We need to talk in person. I'm 4 hours away." "Just tell me." "Jake. Captain, please." Rodriguez sighed. "Fine. You remember the traffickers we were tracking? The ones running the operation out of that warehouse?" "Yeah. We finally flipped one of them. Low-level guy, facing 20 years. You started talking 3 weeks ago." Rodriguez paused. "Jake, there's no easy way to say this. They didn't kill Rex. The world tilted." "What?" "Proofread this. The traffickers, they took him. Kept him alive because they thought he might be worth something. Trained police dog, rare breed. They tried to sell him on the black market. Jake couldn't breathe. You're saying Rex has been alive for 3 years? Was alive. The trafficker said they sold him about 18 months after the raid. To some trucker looking for a protection dog. Guy responded to an online ad. The room spun. A trucker. An online ad. 2 years ago. Jake, you still there? What happened to the body? Jake's voice sounded hollow. You guys told me you recovered his body. We recovered a body. A Malinois. Rodriguez's voice dropped. But Jake, we never did DNA verification. The warehouse was contaminated. Evidence was everywhere. We just assumed. You assumed. Jake's hand clenched around the phone. You assumed, and you let me believe my partner died because of me for 3 goddamn years. Jake, I'm sorry. We're trying to track the dog now. The trafficker gave us the trucker's name. Jake ended the call. His hands were shaking. His whole body was shaking. He looked at the Malinois in the corner. Really looked. Scars. Clouded eye. Left side favoring. German command response. Heavy-duty military collar with a 4-digit K9 number. Sold to a trucker 2 years ago. Surrendered to a shelter 6 weeks ago. Oh my God. Rex? Jake whispered. The dog's head snapped up. Not toward Jake. Toward the name. The word. Every hair on Jake's body stood on end. Rex, he said again, louder. The Malinois' entire body went rigid. His ears, both of them, even the damaged one, stood at full attention. His clouded eye fixed on Jake with sudden, sharp focus. And then he whined. Not a pain sound. Not a fear sound. A recognition sound. Jake's legs gave out. He hit his knees on the hardwood floor, tears streaming down his face before he even registered he was crying. Rex, oh my God, Rex, it's you. The dog stood, hesitant, shaking, like he didn't trust what he was hearing. It's me, buddy. It's Jake. It's God, Rex. I thought you were dead. I thought. Rex took one step forward, then stopped. 3 years. 3 years of abuse, neglect, trauma. 3 years of thinking he'd been abandoned. I didn't leave you, Jake sobbed. I swear to God, I didn't leave you. I thought you died. They told me you died. Another step. Rex was halfway across the room now, his entire body trembling. Higher, Jake whispered through his tears. Bit, calm higher. Please. Come here, Rex broke. He crossed the remaining distance in 3 bounds and collapsed against Jake's chest, making sounds Jake had never heard a dog make, whimpers and whines and small broken noises that sounded like crying. Jake wrapped his arms around him and held on. Held on like Rex might disappear if he let go. Felt the familiar weight of him, the warmth of him, the reality of him. Proofread this. I got you, Jake whispered into Rex's fur. I got you. You're home. You're safe. I got you. Rex pressed his scarred muzzle against Jake's neck. And for the first time in 3 years, Jake felt something other than guilt and pain. He felt hope. They stayed like that for an hour, maybe more. Time stopped meaning anything. When Jake finally pulled back, he looked at Rex properly. Took inventory of every scar, every injury, every sign of what he'd endured. What did they do to you? Jake whispered. Rex's clouded eye met his good one. And Jake saw the same question reflected back. What did they do to you? Because they were both different now. Both broken. Both scarred. But both still alive. Jake's phone rang again. Rodriguez. This time, Jake answered. Captain. Jake, listen. We're organizing a search for... I found him. What? Rex. I found him. He's been in my apartment for the last 12 hours. Stunned silence. Then, are you sure? Jake looked at the dog pressed against his side. The dog who responded to his name and his commands, and his voice like coming home after a long war. Yeah, Jake said. I'm sure. Jake, that's incredible. But we need to verify. We need to document this. process it officially. He's not going anywhere, Jake said firmly. Rex stays with me. We do whatever verification you need, but he's not leaving my sight again. Agreed. I'll drive out tomorrow morning. Jake. I'm glad you found him. I'm glad you're both. There's something else, Jake interrupted, his hand running over Rex's collar. The heavy nylon felt wrong somehow. Too thick. Too stiff. What? Rex's collar. It's weird. Military grade, but there's something off about it. Off how? Jake ran his fingers along the collar's edge, feeling the layers. It's reinforced, like there's something built into it. Built into it? Yeah, Jake's fingers caught on a small seam. Nearly invisible, hidden under dirt and wear. Hold on. He carefully unclasped the collar and brought it closer to the light. The seam ran along the inside of the collar, sealed with some kind of waterproof adhesive. There's a compartment, Jake said slowly. Sealed. Don't open it, Rodriguez said sharply. Not yet. If the traffickers put something in their drugs, evidence, we need to process it properly. But Jake's hands were already working at the scene. 3 years. 3 years of guilt. 3 years of not knowing. Whatever was in this collar, it was part of the answer. The seal gave way with a small tearing sound. Inside the hollow chamber of the collar was a small plastic bag. Waterproof, heat-sealed. Inside the bag, a micro SD card. Jake, what is it? Jake stared at the card, his heart pounding. Evidence, he whispered. There's an SD card hidden in his collar. Rex whined softly and pressed closer to Jake's side. And suddenly Jake understood. Rex hadn't just survived. Rex had been carrying something, protecting something. The reason the traffickers had kept him alive. The reason they'd tried to sell him instead of killing him. Rex knew something, or had something. Something worth keeping a police dog alive for. I'm coming up there tonight, Rodriguez said. Don't touch that card. Don't put it in anything. We need digital forensics on this. Rodriguez, Jake said quietly. What was on the warrant for that warehouse raid? What were we really looking for? A long pause. Then, you don't remember? I remember a drug shipment. Standard bust. Jake. It wasn't standard. It was a human trafficking operation. We were looking for evidence to bring down a network that spanned 3 states. That warehouse was supposed to have financial records, client lists, everything we needed to. Jake's blood ran cold. And we raided it before we secured the evidence. Intel said the evidence was being moved that night. We had to move fast, but we didn't find anything. No, the hard drives were gone. The paperwork was gone. Everything that mattered, gone. Jake looked at the SD card in his hand. Then at Rex. Rex found it, he whispered. That's why they took him. He found the evidence, and somehow they knew. That's a big assumption, is it? Jake stood, card clutched in his hand. They kept a police dog alive for 3 years. They didn't kill him, didn't dispose of him. Why? Because he was valuable? Maybe. Or because killing him meant risking whatever he was carrying being found. Rex stood too, pressed against Jake's leg like a shadow. If that's true, Rodriguez said slowly, then Rex might be carrying evidence that could still bring down an entire trafficking network. And the traffickers might still be looking for him. The words hung in the air like a threat. Jake walked to his window and looked out at the quiet street below, where he'd felt safe. Rodriguez, if they tracked Rex to that trucker, they might know he's at the shelter, or... Rodriguez's voice hardened. Jake, did you use your real name on the adoption paperwork? Jake's stomach dropped. Yeah. Your current address. Yeah. Okay. Listen to me very carefully. I'm sending 2 units to you right now. They'll be there in 3 hours. Until then, you lock your doors, you keep Rex close, and you don't open that door for anyone. Understand? Jake was already moving, checking the locks on his windows, his door. Rex followed him, alert now, sensing the change in Jake's energy. What about Carol, the shelter director? If they tracked him there, I'll send a unit to her too. Jake, I need you to stay calm and... A sound from the stairwell. Footsteps. Heavy. Multiple people. Jake's training kicked in instantly. He killed the lights, grabbed Rex's collar, and moved them both into the bedroom. Someone's here, he whispered into the phone. The units are still 2 hours out. Jake, do not engage. You're not a cop anymore. You don't have a knock at the door. Polite. Casual. Animal control? Sir, we got a complaint about noise. Just need a quick word. Jake's blood ran cold because he'd lived in this building for 6 months and the neighbors had never complained about anything. Because it was 10 a.m. on a weekday and everyone was at work, and because no one had called animal control. He was animal control. Rex growled, low, dangerous, the sound of a dog who'd been trained to know when something was wrong. Jake? Rodriguez's voice in his ear. Jake, talk to me. They're here, Jake whispered. Another knock. Harder this time. Sir, we know you're in there. Just want to talk about the dog. Jake looked at Rex, at the SD card in his hand, at 3 years of guilt and pain and running from everything that mattered. Not again, he thought. I'm not freezing again. He ended the call with Rodriguez, pocketed the SD card, and did something stupid. He opened the door. Chapter 4. The Thing About Trust. 15 o'clock to 25 minutes and 0 seconds. 3 men stood in the hallway. Casual clothes. One had a clipboard. The other 2 had their hands in their jacket pockets. No one who was actually from animal control would approach a complaint call about a dangerous dog with their hands hidden. Can I help you? Jake asked, keeping his body blocking the doorway. The man with the clipboard smiled. Professional. Practiced. Like I said, noise complaint. Neighbor called about aggressive dog behavior. Just need to verify the animal's registration and vaccination status. Which neighbor? Sir, I'm not at liberty. Proofread this. Mrs. Chun in 2A is deaf. Mr. Patel in 2B works nights and sleeps all day with noise-canceling headphones. The hardware store below me is empty this week for renovations. Jake's voice stayed level. So which neighbor called? The smile didn't waver. Sir, if you could just show us your paperwork for the... No. The man's eyes hardened. Excuse me? I said no. You're not animal control. I am animal control for this county. And whoever you are, you need to leave. Behind him, Rex growled again. The sound raised every hair on Jake's neck, not because it was threatening, but because he recognized it. Rex's operational growl. The sound he made when he'd identified a hostile. The man with the clipboard glanced at his companions. Some silent communication passed between them. Look, the man said, his voice losing the professional veneer. We're here for the dog. You give him to us, nobody gets hurt. Not happening. Sir, you don't understand. That animal is dangerous. Stolen property. We have a legal right. To what? Break into my apartment? Threaten an officer of the law? Jake's hand moved to his hip where his service weapon used to be. Not there anymore. But the movement was automatic, and the men saw it. One of the other men pulled his hand from his pocket. Gun. Everything slowed down. Jake's options flashed through his mind. Slam the door. They'll shoot through it. Fight. He's outnumbered. Comply. They'll take Rex and probably kill them both to cover their tracks. But there was a fourth option. One he'd trained for. One he'd executed dozens of times with Rex by his side. Trust your partner. Fast, Jake said quietly. Attack. Rex exploded through the doorway. 70 pounds of trained police canine hit the gunman like a missile. The gun went flying. The man screamed. The other 2 scattered backward, and Jake used those precious seconds to grab the gun from the floor and level it at clipboard guy. Don't move. Everyone froze. The gunman was on the ground. Rex's jaws clamped around his forearm. Not breaking, not tearing. just holding, perfectly controlled. Exactly like he'd been trained. Jake Morrison, clipboard guy, said slowly. Former K-9 handler. Quit the force 3 years ago after a botched raid. And here you are, playing hero with a dog that doesn't even belong to you. He belongs to himself, Jake said. Now get out. That dog is carrying something that belongs to my employers. Something worth a lot more than your life. The SD card? Jake asked. Yeah, I found it. And it has already been uploaded to the cloud with automatic distribution to 3 different federal agencies if I do and check in every hour. A complete lie, but a convincing one. Clipboard guy's jaw tightened. You're bluffing. You willing to bet your boss's freedom on that? For a long moment, nobody moved. Then clipboard guy smiled. This isn't over. Proofread this. Yeah, it is. Because in about 90 minutes, this place will be swarming with SFP DK-9 units and federal agents. And when they get here, I'm going to tell them all about you, your friends, and whoever sent you. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Human trafficking ring operating out of Oakland. 3-state operation. You kept Rex alive because you thought his collar might have evidence. You're right. It does. Jake's finger tightened on the trigger. Now leave. The men retreated down the stairs. Jake kept the gun trained on them until they disappeared. Only then did he lower the weapon and look at Rex, still holding the gunman's arm in a perfect apprehension grip. Ows, Jake commanded. Release. Rex let go immediately and returned to Jake's side, his body tense, ready for another command. Jake's hands were shaking so hard he nearly dropped the gun. 3 years. 3 years since he'd given Rex an operational command. 3 years since he trusted himself to make the right call. And Rex had responded like no time had passed at all. Good boy, Jake whispered. Good boy, Rex. Good. His knees gave out. He sat hard on the floor, gun dangling from his hand. Rex pressed against him. I didn't freeze, he realized. I didn't freeze. His phone rang. Rodriguez. They're gone, Jake said, before Rodriguez could speak. For now? Are you hurt? No. Rex? Rex took one of them down. Perfect apprehension. Like we never stopped working together. Jake, listen to me. Those units I sent? I need you to meet them halfway. It's not safe there anymore. Where am I supposed to go? There's a safe house in Pinewood, about 40 minutes from you, used for witness protection. I can have it ready in an hour. Jake looked around his apartment. The life he'd built. The quiet, anonymous existence that had felt like safety. I can't run again, he said quietly. I spent 3 years running. I'm done. Jake, but I need to protect Rex. So yeah, safe house. Send me the address. An hour later, Jake loaded Rex into his truck along with everything that mattered. Rex's old collar with the SD card, his K-9 unit photo, the list of German commands, and a duffel bag of clothes he'd grabbed without thinking. The safe house was a cabin in the woods. Small, isolated, perfect for disappearing, or perfect for being cornered. Jake pushed that thought away and focused on getting Rex settled. The dog was nervous, hypervigilant, constantly checking windows and doors. I know, Jake murmured. I don't like it either. That night, Jake sat at the cabin's small dining table with Rodriguez on video call and a digital forensics expert named Chun examining the SD card. It's encrypted, Chun said, fingers flying over a keyboard. Military grade. Someone knew what they were doing. Can you break it? Rodriguez asked. Given enough time, yes, but there's something odd. The encryption has a biometric component. Jake frowned. What does that mean? Chun looked up. It means the card won't decrypt without a specific biometric signature. Usually fingerprint or retinal scan. Whose signature? That's the question. Chun pulled up a series of code strings on her screen. But based on the protocol type, this looks like K-9 unit encryption. Jake's blood ran cold. K-9 units don't use biometric encryption. Special operations K-9 units do, Rodriguez said quietly. For handlers working undercover. The encryption is keyed to the handler's fingerprint, so if the handler is killed or captured, the data can't be extracted. Jake stared at the SD card. You're saying it's keyed to my fingerprint? Only one way to find out. Chun set up a portable scanner. Jake pressed his thumb against it. The laptop chimed. Biometric match confirmed. Decrypting. Oh my God, Chun whispered, staring at her screen. Jake, you need to see this. Jake moved behind her chair. The video feed was dark, grainy, clearly shot from a low-angle chest level. Body cam, Jake realized. Rex's tactical vest had a camera. The timestamp read 3 years ago, the night of the raid. He was recording, Jake breathed. The video showed the warehouse interior. Jake's voice giving commands. Team moving in formation. Everything normal. Then, shouting. Gunfire. Chaos. Jake watched himself on screen, younger, more confident, calling Rex to his side. Then he saw what he'd missed that night. What he'd been too traumatized to remember. One of the suspects running toward a back room. Rex seeing him. Breaking formation without command because he'd spotted something Jake hadn't. The suspect had a device in his hand. Cylindrical. Is that? Rodriguez started. Grenade, Chun confirmed. Rex saw it before anyone else. On screen, Rex charged the suspect. Took him down. The grenade dropped, rolled. And Rex, instead of running, grabbed it in his jaws and bolted toward an open window. The explosion threw him 15 feet. The video feed cut to static for 30 seconds. When it came back, Rex was lying in rubble, whimpering. Blood everywhere. His left eye swollen shut. His muzzle torn. And then, voices. Not police voices. Grab the dog. If he had a camera, he recorded everything. Hands reaching down. Rex trying to fight but too injured. We'll sell him. Someone will pay good money for a trained police dog. And if anyone comes looking, we just say he died. The video cut out. Jake couldn't breathe. He saved us. The grenade would have killed half the team. Rex saved us, and I thought, you thought he died attacking a suspect, Rodriguez finished. Because that's what we told you when we recovered the wrong dog's body. Jake's hands clenched into fists. Why didn't the camera footage upload automatically? Probably damaged in the explosion, Chun said. But the card kept recording. Look, there are 3 years of sporadic audio files. Every time Rex's caller transmitted nearby Bluetooth signals, it auto-recorded. She opened the audio files. Fragments. Conversations. The traffickers talking about shipments, locations, clients, everything. 3 years of evidence, captured automatically by Rex's caller. This could bring down the entire network, Rodriguez said. Not just the guys who took Rex, but the people they work for. Potentially hundreds of victims freed. Jake looked at Rex, sleeping on the cabin floor by the fireplace. Exhausted. Traumatized. A hero who'd spent 3 years being treated like a weapon and a commodity. We need to go public with this, Jake said. They know we have the card. The only way to protect Rex is to make sure everyone knows what's on it. Agreed, Rodriguez said. I'll coordinate with the FBI. But Jake, this is going to get messy. Media, trials, depositions. Your life is going to be turned upside down. Jake thought about his quiet apartment above the hardware store. His anonymous life in Millbrook. Then he looked at Rex. My life was already upside down, Jake said. Time to set it right. Chapter 5. The press conference, 25 minutes and 0 seconds to 32 minutes and 0 seconds. The press conference was scheduled for the next morning at SFPD headquarters. Rodriguez wanted Jake and Rex there. The whole story, start to finish. with the hero canine who'd saved lives and documented crimes for 3 years. But first, Jake needed to do something he'd been avoiding. He called the therapist Rodriguez had been recommending for 3 years. Dr. Sarah Kim answered on the second ring. "This is Dr. Kim. Hi, my name is Jake Morrison. Captain Rodriguez gave me your number. He said you work with first responders." "I do. What can I help you with, Jake?" Jake stopped. Started again. "I had a partner who died, or I thought he died. But he didn't. He's been alive this whole time, going through hell while I was hiding." "I see. And now you've found him?" "Yeah, he's right here. And I don't know how to make up for leaving him, how to fix what they did to him, how to fix myself." A pause. Then, "Jake, can I tell you something?" "Sure. Healing isn't about fixing. It's about learning to live with the scars. Both of you have scars now, physical, emotional. You can't erase them, but you can choose what they mean going forward." Jake looked at Rex, who'd woken up and was watching him with those mismatched eyes. "I spent 3 years feeling guilty," Jake said. "Like I deserved to suffer because I let him down. And now I realize we were both let down. By a system that told me he was dead instead of doing a proper recovery. By intel that sent us into a trap. By traffickers who treated him like property." Jake's voice hardened. "I can't change the past, but I can make damn sure the people who did this pay for it." "That's good, Jake. That's healthy rage. Channel it into action, not self-destruction." After the call, Jake felt lighter somehow. Not fixed, but less broken. The next morning, Jake put on his old dress uniform. It still fit, though it felt strange after 3 years of civilian clothes. He brushed Rex's coat until it shone, cleaned the dried blood from his scars as gently as possible, and attached a new collar, this one with his official K9 unit designation restored. "K94773, Officer Rex Morrison. You ready for this?" Jake asked. Rex's tail wagged, once. Tentative but real. The drive to San Francisco took 3 hours. Rodriguez met them in headquarters with a full tactical escort. "There are about 50 reporters in there," Rodriguez warned. "Plus FBI, local PD, and some representatives from trafficking victim advocacy groups. It's going to be intense. We've handled worse," Jake said, and meant it. The press room was packed. Cameras, microphones, the weight of attention Jake had spent 3 years avoiding. Rodriguez went first, laying out the basic facts. The raid 3 years ago, the false body identification, the rescue of Rex, the evidence on the SD card. Then, it was Jake's turn. He walked to the podium with Rex at his left side. Perfect heel position, like they'd never stopped working together. 3 years ago, Jake began, I participated in a raid that went wrong. A grenade was deployed. In the chaos and aftermath, I was told my canine partner, Rex, had been killed in action. He paused, hand dropping to rest on Rex's head. I believed that for 3 years. I carried the guilt of his death. I quit the police force. I moved away. I tried to disappear. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled notes. Last week, I encountered a dog at a Cali shelter. He was scheduled for euthanasia. Labeled unadoptable, broken. Jake's voice caught. I brought him home, and slowly I realized he wasn't just any dog. He was my partner, my Rex. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Rex didn't die in that warehouse. He saved my life and the lives of my team by eliminating a grenade threat. The explosion injured him severely, and while he was wounded, the traffickers we were investigating took him. They kept him alive for 3 years, selling him as a protection dog, probably hoping to recover the evidence they knew he might be carrying. Jake reached into his pocket and held up the SD card. This card contains 3 years of video and audio evidence, conversations, transactions, locations, names, everything. The FBI needs to dismantle a major human trafficking operation. More murmurs. Someone shouted a question, but Rodriguez gestured for quiet. Rex carried this evidence through years of abuse and neglect. He protected it, protected us. And when I found him, when I brought him home, he was still ready to serve. Still ready to protect. Still ready to be the hero he's always been. Jake's voice broke, and he didn't try to hide it. I don't deserve him. I don't deserve his loyalty or his trust, but he's giving it to me anyway, because that's what partners do. He looked down at Rex, whose tail was wagging now, strong and steady. So I'm here to set the record straight. Officer Rex Morrison didn't die 3 years ago. He survived. And now we're going to make sure every person who hurt him, who trafficked victims, who destroyed lives, they all pay. The room erupted in questions. How did Rex survive the explosion? What injuries does he have? Will he return to active duty? What happens to the traffickers? Jake answered them all honestly. The injuries, the PTSD, the long road to recovery ahead. And when someone asked if Rex would ever be the same, Jake smiled sadly. No, he won't be the same. Neither will I, but maybe that's okay. Maybe we're better now. Better for having survived. Better for having found each other again. After the conference, Jake and Rex stood in the parking lot while Rodriguez took calls from FBI brass, coordinating the takedown of the trafficking network. A woman approached them hesitantly. Mid-30s, neat business attire, a manila folder in her hands. Officer Morrison? Jake turned. Yes? My name is Elena Vasquez. I'm a social worker with the Trafficking Victim Recovery Coalition. She glanced at Rex. Can I pet him? He's still learning to trust people again. But you can try. Elena crouched slowly, extending her hand. Rex sniffed cautiously, then allowed a brief touch to his head. I wanted to thank you, Elena said, standing. The evidence Rex carried. We've been trying to shut down this network for 5 years. They're good at covering their tracks. But with this, she held up the folder. We've already identified 12 victims from the audio files. 12 people who can finally go home. Jake's throat tightened. Because of Rex. Because of Rex, Elena confirmed. He's a hero. I hope he knows that. After she left, Jake sat on the curb with Rex beside him. You hear that, buddy? 12 people going home because of you. Rex leaned against him. I know you don't care about being called a hero. You just did your job, but I care. I care that people know what you did, what you sacrificed. His phone buzzed. A text from Carol at the shelter. Carol saw the press conference. I'm so glad you found him. He found you. Come by sometime. I want to give him a proper hero's welcome. And Jake, I'm proud of you too. Jake smiled through the tears he didn't bother wiping away. For 3 years, he'd been running from his past. From his guilt. From the person he used to be. But maybe he'd been running toward something too. Toward this moment. Toward Rex. Toward healing. What do you say? Jake asked. Ready to go home? Rex's tail wagged. Home. Not the apartment above the hardware store. Not the cabin in the woods. But wherever they were together, that was home. Chapter 6. The Trial of Trust. 32 minutes and 0 seconds to 40 minutes and 0 seconds. The FBI moved fast. Within 3 days, they'd arrested 17 people connected to the trafficking network. The evidence from Rex's collar was ironclad voices, dates, locations, all time-stamped and verified. But Jake and Rex weren't done yet. We need Rex to testify, FBI Special Agent Monica Torres said, sitting in Rodriguez's office. Not literally, obviously. But we need to demonstrate his reliability as an evidence-gathering tool. Show the jury his training, his capabilities. Jake leaned back in his chair. You want him to perform. I want him to show a jury that he's a trained, disciplined police K-9 who wouldn't have allowed his collar to be tampered with or compromised. That the evidence he carried is legitimate. He's been through hell. You want to put him through a public trial too? Torres met his eyes. I want to put away the people who hurt him, and hundreds of others. Don't you? Jake looked at Rex, lying at his feet. The dog had gained weight in the past week. His coat was shinier, but the scars remained, physical and otherwise. If we do this, Jake said slowly, we do it my way. Limited exposure. No surprise commands or tests. I walk him through everything, demonstrate his training myself. Agreed. The trial began 4 weeks later. Jake spent every day preparing Rex, not teaching him new skills, but rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. They trained in the mornings, walked in the afternoons, and at night, Jake read aloud from books while Rex dozed by his feet. Dr. Kim, Jake's therapist, came twice a week. They talked about guilt, trauma, and the strange grace of second chances. You're doing good work, she told him during one session. Both with Rex and with yourself. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does. That's how you know you care. On the day Jake was scheduled to demonstrate Rex's capabilities in court, he woke to find Rex already alert, watching the sunrise through the apartment window. Big day, Jake said. Rex's ears swiveled toward him. They arrived at the courthouse at 9 a.m. Media trucks lined the streets. Security was intense. Torres met them at a side entrance. The defense is going to argue that the collar evidence is inadmissible, she warned. They'll claim it was planted, that Rex isn't reliable, that the encryption could have been hacked. Let them try. Inside the courtroom, Jake walked Rex to a demonstration area the judge had approved. The jury watched curiously 12 people who would decide if Rex's evidence was legitimate. Officer Morrison, Torres began formally. Can you tell the court about K94773, also known as Rex? Jake did. Training history. Deployment record. Successful operations. The raid 3 years ago. And after the explosion, Torres continued. What happened to Rex? He was taken by the suspects. Kept alive, eventually sold. He spent 3 years in civilian hands, most of it abusive, before ending up in a county shelter scheduled for euthanasia. How did you find him? I didn't. He found me. Jake's hand rested on Rex's head. Or maybe we found each other. Torres smiled slightly. Can you demonstrate Rex's training for the court? Jake nodded. He'd planned this carefully, a series of commands that showed discipline, control, and the bond between handler and K9. Rex sits. Sit. Rex sat immediately. Platz. Down. Rex dropped. Leib. Stay. Jake walked across the courtroom. 20 feet. 30. Rex didn't move. Higher. Rex came to him in a perfect heel, sitting at Jake's left side without being told. The jury looked impressed. But the defense attorney stood. Objection. This is a well-trained dog performing basic commands. It doesn't prove the evidence on the collar is legitimate. The judge nodded. Sustained. Miss Torres, do you have anything else? Torres looked at Jake. They discussed this possibility. Jake had prepared something, though he wasn't sure he could pull it off. Your Honor, Jake said. May I approach? Proceed. Jake walked to the defense table where the lead defendant sat, Marcus Chun, the trafficker who'd personally kept Rex for 8 months before selling him. Rex's body went rigid. A low growl rumbled in his chest. It's okay, Jake murmured. I've got you. He turned to the jury. Rex was trained to identify threats, to read people. 3 years away from police work hasn't changed that. He gestured to the defendant. This man bought Rex from another trafficker, kept him crated 23 hours a day, used shock collars when Rex showed aggression, eventually sold him because he wasn't worth the trouble. Jake looked at Rex. This was the risk. The moment that could prove everything or backfire completely. Rex search. Rex's nose went up. He moved forward, slowly, toward the defense table. Not attacking. Searching. He stopped in front of Marcus Chun. Sat. Stared. the exact position for a positive alert. That's his indication for finding a target, Jake explained. He's telling me this is the person. Objection. The defense attorney shot up. This is prejudicial and— Your Honor, Torres interrupted. We have witness testimony placing the defendant in contact with Canine Rex. The dog's response is evidence of memory and recognition. The judge considered. I'll allow it. But Mr. Morrison, keep your dog under control. Jake called Rex back. The dog returned immediately, but his eyes never left Marcus Chun. The message was clear. I remember you. That night, back at the apartment, Jake collapsed on the couch with Rex pressed against his side. You did good today, he murmured. Better than good. You were perfect. Rex's tail thumped against the cushions. Jake's phone rang. Torres. The defense just filed a motion to suppress the collar evidence. They're claiming Rex's behavior today proves he's traumatized and unreliable. That's bullshit. I know, but we need to counter it. I need you to prepare a full psychological evaluation of Rex. Training records, current behavioral assessments, everything. When? Judge wants it in 3 days. Jake looked at Rex. 3 days to prove his partner wasn't broken, just surviving. I'll have her ready. He called Dr. Kim first. I need a favor. She listened as he explained. You want me to evaluate Rex? You work with PTSD. You understand trauma. If anyone can show that Rex is reliable despite what he's been through, it's you. Jake, I'm a human psychologist. Trauma is trauma. And you've seen how far we've both come. A long pause. Okay, bring him by tomorrow. Dr. Kim's office was in a renovated Victorian in the Mission District. She met them at the door, professional but warm. Hello, Rex, she said quietly, not reaching to pet him. Jake's told me a lot about you. They spent 2 hours together. Dr. Kim observed Rex's behavior, tested his responses, talked to Jake about training protocols and rehabilitation progress. At the end, she sat back in her chair and smiled. This dog has severe PTSD, trauma responses, fear behaviors, all consistent with prolonged abuse. Jake's heart sank. But, Dr. Kim continued, he also has extraordinary resilience. His training is intact. His bond with you is strong. And most importantly, his cognitive function is excellent. He's not broken, Jake. He's coping. Can you write that in a report the court will accept? Better. I can testify. The hearing was set for 2 days later. The courtroom was packed media, victim advocates, law enforcement, and trafficking survivors who'd been identified through Rex's evidence. Dr. Kim took the stand first, professional and unshakable. In my expert opinion, she testified, Canine Rex displays trauma symptoms consistent with prolonged abuse. However, his core training and cognitive function remain intact. His response to the defendant was not unreliable behavior, it was recognition memory. He remembered the person who hurt him. But isn't that bias? The defense attorney pressed. Doesn't that make him unreliable as an evidence source? No, Dr. Kim said firmly. It makes him human. Or rather, it makes him a sentient being with memory and emotion. That doesn't invalidate his training or the evidence he carried. If anything, it reinforces it. Despite severe trauma, Rex maintained his protective instincts and his bond with his handler. That's not unreliability. That's extraordinary dedication. The defense had no response. Jake testified next, walking the court through Rex's rehabilitation. The progress, the setbacks, the moments of breakthrough. Rex saved my life 3 years ago, Jake said. And he's saving it again now. Not because he's a perfect, emotionless machine, but because he's a partner who never gave up on the mission. On me, on himself. When the judge ruled, her voice was firm. The evidence from K9 4773's collar is admissible. This court finds that the defendant's trauma does not impact his reliability, but rather speaks to the severity of the crimes committed against him and others. Motion denied. Outside the courthouse, Jake knelt beside Rex and buried his face in the dog's fur. "We won," he whispered. "We actually won." Rex licked his ear. "Proofread this. I'm keeping him, obviously. He's retired from active duty, but he's mine. We're each other's." "That's not what I meant." Rodriguez's voice was careful. "The department wants to offer you something. A position as lead trainer for our K-9 unit, specifically for trauma rehabilitation. There are dozens of retired and rescued K-9 South who need help. Who needs someone who understands?" Jake's breath caught. "You're offering me my job back?" "Not your old job. A better one. One where you can use what you've learned, what you and Rex have been through. I need to think about it. Take your time. But Jake, you're not the same person who quit 3 years ago. You're better, stronger, and we need that." After hanging up, Jake sat in silence. The apartment was quiet except for Rex's soft breathing. A year ago, he'd been hiding in Millbrook, running from everything that reminded him of who he used to be. Now he had the chance to become someone new. Someone who helped instead of hiding. "What do you think?" he asked Rex. Rex opened one eye, then closed it again. "His version of whatever you choose, I'm with you." Jake smiled. "Okay," he whispered. "Let's do it." The next morning, Jake called Rodriguez. "I'm in. On one condition." "Name it." "Rex stays with me. Always. He's not a training prop or a demonstration tool. He's my partner. And he deserves to rest." "Agreed. Welcome back, Officer Morrison." Jake hung up and looked at Rex. "Hear that, buddy? We're going home." The real home. Chapter 8. Scars and Stars. 47 minutes and 0 seconds to 52 minutes and 0 seconds. 6 months later. Jake stood in the SFPD K-9 training facility, watching a young handler work with a rescued Belgian Malinois named Duke. The dog was making progress, slow. Careful progress, but progress nonetheless. "Good," Jake called out. "Let him set the pace." "You're doing great." The handler, Officer Lisa Chang, flashed him a grateful smile. This was Jake's life now. Training handlers. Rehabilitating rescued K-9 South. Teaching the next generation that trauma doesn't mean broken. Rex was beside him, as always. Retired officially, but still the best teacher Jake had. When new dogs arrived scared, aggressive, shut down, Rex would approach them calmly. Show them it was possible to trust again. "He's like a therapy dog for other working dogs," Rodriguez had joked once. But it was true. Rex had found his new purpose, helping others heal. Proofread this. Not fixed, not healed completely, but winning anyway. That was enough. Chapter 7. The Reckoning. 40 minutes and 0 seconds to 47 minutes and 0 seconds. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Jake attended every day, Rex at his side. They listened to testimony from victims, people who'd been trafficked, abused, sold. People whose voices had been recovered from Rex's collar. The worst day was when they played the audio. 3 years of fragments. Conversations Rex had recorded unknowingly. Deals being made. Victims being discussed like inventory. And one clip that made Jake's blood run cold. "The dog's no good anymore. Too aggressive. Told you he'd be trouble. Police dogs don't forget. So what do we do with him? Dump him. Shelter, street, doesn't matter. Without the collar, nobody'll know he's worth anything." Jake's hand clenched on Rex's leash. They'd planned to dispose of him, and they nearly had. The defendants, 17 of them, sat stone-faced through it all. But Jake saw cracks. Furtive glances. Nervous tics. They knew they were done. On the final day of testimony, Torres called Jake to the stand one last time. "Officer Morrison, you've heard 3 weeks of evidence about what these defendants did. To Rex, to their victims. How does that make you feel?" "Objection," the defense attorney said weakly. "Relevance?" "I'll allow it," the judge said. "Answer the question, Officer Morrison." Jake looked at the defendants. Then at Rex, sitting in the gallery's front row where Carol had volunteered to hold him. 3 years ago, I thought I'd lost everything. My partner, my career, my sense of purpose. I spent that time hating myself for failing, for not being good enough. His voice steadied. But I was wrong. I didn't fail. The system failed. These people, he gestured to the defendants, they failed. They chose cruelty. They chose profit over humanity. And yeah, I made mistakes. I could have searched harder for Rex, could have questioned the body identification, but I was lied to. We all were. Jake stood straighter. What these defendants did, to Rex, to their victims, that's on them. And now they'll answer for it. Not because Rex and I are perfect, but because we survived. Because we found each other. And because we refused to let them win. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty, on all counts. All 17 defendants. The courtroom erupted. Victims cried. Advocates cheered. Jake just sat, overwhelmed, as Rex pressed against his legs. We did it, Torres said, crouching beside them. Jake, Rex, you did it. Outside, media swarmed. Jake gave one statement. This is bigger than me and Rex. This is about every victim who survived. Every person who refused to give up. Rex carried their voices for 3 years. Now justice has given them back. That night, Rodriguez called. How do you feel? Exhausted, relieved, angry that it took so long. Yeah, Rodriguez paused. Jake, I need to ask you something. What are your plans with Rex? Jake looked at the dog sleeping by the fireplace, finally relaxed, finally safe.